welcome back. Nice to see a few familiar faces. If you're new, my name is Bartholomew Conroy, and it is my job to make sure operatives of the Portal Detection and Concealment Agency have all the relevant information they need before going on a mission. Today, you'll be hearing about one of the creatures we house in Alton, England. The Alton site is one where we keep numerous entities, most of which have been found in the United Kingdom, but it is one of the stranger sites because we allow the general public entrance to the facility, or at least on the surface, that is. You see, the location remains hidden in plain sight. Our operatives work underground whilst the public are invited to the theme park on the surface. It's an experimental location where we theme many of the rides on the entities we are working with, and the screams of the thrill seekers hide any goings on under the surface. It has worked quite well, really, as the constant stream of guests gives us another means of funding our operations, whilst also hiding our work from any rival agencies or a particular foundation, of whom would think us stupid to house a site in such a populated area. The entity you will hear of today is Oblivious, the Cavernous Maw. On the surface of the facility we have one ride that draws guests from all over the world, a dive coaster that drops below the surface and into a tunnel. Before reappearing near the end of its cycle, we have named the creature Oblivious after enough visitors claimed that entering the tunnel of the ride was similar to entering eternal darkness, otherwise known as Oblivion. The creature itself is a lumbering brute of a monster and has been housed at the site since 1998, when we discovered a series of caverns that composed the perfect means of containment, whilst allowing the creature some space for movement in its natural environment. The beast walks on two large, muscular and bizarrely human-looking arms. It has no back legs and relies heavily on these two limbs for transport and support. The rest of the body is more peculiar still. It appears almost bulbous, having a hulking frame but having a long tail that sways behind as it walks, tipped with what appears to be a bright orange arrow. The creature's skin is a ghastly grey with a blue hue. Its veins show through, being a similar colour to the tail, and orange spikes and plating cover the creature's spine. But none of this by any means is the strangest thing about the creature. In terms of the creature's head, it doesn't have one. Rather, the creature's mouth is attached directly to the body and is usually seen open, dripping with red saliva, and multiple rows of teeth. Its mouth is also circular, similar to a lamprey or leech, but with traits similar to that of a shark. On top of this, the creature has no visible signs of eyes or nose. We suspect the lack of eyes is for a similar reason as the golden mole, in the case that the creature evolved to not need them due to living in such immense darkness. But this theory is concerning still, as this would suggest a lineage behind the creature that we have in our care. We don't actually know the origins of the beast, only that the creature has been moved from site to site since the late 1700s, but was originally housed in a site not too far from Alton in the first place. The origin of how we captured the beast is as follows. A village 20 miles from Alton had been reporting disappearances, usually in the form of 8 men and 8 women, every month for 5 years after the unfortunate collapse of a mine. Usually the agency wouldn't have bothered checking out such a trivial matter, but the frequency of the disappearances and the consistency gave us enough reason to investigate. What we found was more disturbing than anything previously conjured by anyone at the time. On the first of each month, a band of men were breaking into houses, kidnapping people and taking them into a nearby forest. Exactly 8 women and 8 men were taken, and anyone who dared interfere was murdered on the spot. They raced away on horseback, through the trees, across rivers and towards the abandoned mine, the same one that had collapsed 5 years prior. Our operatives, instead of calling for help, waited in the overgrowth to see what they were up to, watching as the men tied up the civilians, lashing them against trees and starting a fire in front of each one, in what almost appeared to be a sacrificial ritual for some unknown being. He continued to watch on as the men finished the exact same treatment for each of the civilians before leaving them unattended. Each of the individuals was screaming for help, but the only person to hear them was the operative. When the men had left the scene, he sprung into action, first telling the civilians to continue screaming even as he cut them free from their ropes. not wanting to draw back the attention of the men through the lack of sound. But as soon as they were all cut free, he encouraged them to be quiet, to draw the men back to the sacrificial grounds on his terms. On seeing a singular operative, they were startled, shaken, livid, knowing that something was coming, and without the sacrificial meat, they were on the menu. They claimed they were the followers of darkness, a cult who praised and fed a creature known only as the Maw. They were a group of 40 individuals who had escaped from the mine after seeing the creature clamber through the wreckage. As it turned out, there were hidden caverns below the man-made mine shaft, and one of the miners had struck the wrong face, causing the entire cave to collapse under their feet and releasing the creature into the shafts. Many had died in the mine at the hands of the creature, but those who made it out saw it as their saviour, only taking the amount of people necessary to keep its hunger at bay. Not long after the cultists finished their story, the beast appeared from the cave, triple the size of an elephant, small compared to its current size. It was at this point that the cultists attempted to capture our man and sacrifice him, but Jonathan Ward had already called in his backup by Falcon. A frenzy ensued, with the cult attempting to capture the reinforcements, operatives collecting the civilians for rehabilitation, and the creature attempting to swallow anyone in its path. Jonathan managed to lure the beast away back into the mine shaft as a temporary placement until the agency could create a more substantial environment for the beast. 36 of the cultists were captured, with the other 4 unfortunately escaping into the world with no way of finding them. It was decided that 16 of the individuals would have to be fed to the creature to ensure it didn't attempt an escape. With all members being male, it was uncertain whether it would work, but we were lucky, and the sex of the individuals had no impact. The other 20 were kept locked up and interrogated with the hopes of learning more about the creature, and on learning the errors of their ways, most even joined the ranks of the PDC. Their ancestors working alongside us to this day at the Alton site. Unfortunately, we were never able to find another way of keeping the creature at bay, so we do continue to feed the creature 16 people at the first of every month. Luckily, the American justice system does house enough death row inmates that they can spare a few to help the cause. At the point where the dive coaster enters the tunnel, we have built a switch track. Instead of taking the usual path, the cart will enter a deeper section of the facility, in the caverns that currently hold Oblivioth. We have turned the ride into a feeding platform whenever necessary. Good news, however, is that we now know that Oblivioth doesn't actually hunt people for its own gain, and in fact doesn't even digest the people it does swallow. The bad news is that the creature does appear to be a living holding cell for something that may be much more dangerous. The reason for the 16 individuals, it would seem, is to keep the creatures inside them more satisfied so they don't attempt to devour their prison. Essentially, Oblivioth is a protector whose main purpose has clearly been lost to history, but with the many entities the location holds, we might need a living prison like this in the future. In the future, we will be returning to the talks on the Alton site regarding the Smilerak, the Wickeram and the NM515 virus. But for now, get some rest. We need our operatives at the best for what's to come.